Welcome to the very first episode of Blow by Blow podcast with me as your host, Nick Irizarry. Let's get started. All right, we're here. First episode of Blow by Blow with Nick Irizarry. That's me. We're going to be talking about a few topics that took place over the weekend, breaking down the fight that just took place between Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, what's coming up for the heavyweight division, some boxing news going on, and some of the upcoming fights. But, we'll get straight into it with the Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders fight. 73,000 fans in the attendance. It felt so great. I felt every single fan that was there through my TV. It was amazing. The atmosphere, the vibe, just everything that led into that fight was just, man, boxing's back. And it's never gone away. It's always been a staple in sports. And Canelo proved that once again. A crazy week leading up to the fight, with all the little antics and the drama going into it with Billy Joe Saunders, standing his ground, saying I need to have a 22-foot ring because I guess they had the ring as said to be 20 feet, but I guess him, Canelo, both teams, Eddie Hearn, they all came into agreement of 22 feet. And then after that, they agreed to that. Then Billy Joe Saunders tried to push for 24 feet, and that wasn't going to happen. I think everything after the 22 feet was agreed upon. Billy Joe was just playing extra mind games, doing whatever he can to try to get a rise out of Canelo. And Canelo all week showed poise, character. He was very stoic. Didn't give any much reactions besides, when he was going through the lobby and Billy Joe Saunders' whole entourage started harassing him, and you had Canelo tell them all, shut the fuck up, you're all pussies, which is fun to see Canelo show a different side to him. Normally he's very reserved, quiet, doesn't like to show much, keeps everything very close to the vest, but now we're starting to see Canelo, be Saul Alvarez, show who he is, and I think it's creating a newfound appreciation for him. And it led into a great fight. Eddie Hearn is doing it right. Sorry, my voice is a little bit gone. I've been screaming for all my clients and my classes. But it was a great fight. And Eddie Hearn's putting on a tremendous show. Damn near selling out the Jerry Jones world. 73,000 fans. And not one person in that building besides Tyson Fury was for Billy Joe Saunders and Billy Joe Saunders' cornerman. Everyone there was for Canelo. You heard every single fan. And it was such a great turnout, and Eddie Hearn put on a great show from the ring walk to the fireworks to the show, everything. Eddie Hearn is doing it right, and you could tell he's taking his notes from Dana White, as he does. He pays homage to him all the time in the shows. He's putting on great shows, the best out there, in my opinion, as far as just the theatrics of the show. And the fight itself, it was, what can you say? It was dominance. It was pure dominance from Canelo Alvarez. The same way he acted fight week, calm, poised, stoic. It was the same way he acted in the ring. Didn't give Billy Joe anything. Very calm, very relaxed. Picked his shots, very patient. And he broke Billy Joe Saunders down and then eventually broke him, quite literally. I think there was a few competitive rounds in the fight. Billy Joe, with his savviness, ring veteranship, and overall experience, he was able to, I'm not going to say exploit Canelo, but take advantage of some moments with Canelo. And that's just, I can only think about a couple. When that left body shot, Canelo got close, finished up to the left hand to the chin. Besides that, he tried a couple antics, dropping his hands, poking his chin out, making his eyes real big, trying to get in Canelo's head. And Canelo just sat there like, no, I'm coming for you. In each shot, you're going to feel me. And even the shots Canelo didn't land, it would move Billy Joe across the whole ring. Canelo, famous with his double jab and then turning his whole body weight into that right hand. He did it multiple times, looped the right hand a lot. Uppercuts to the body, uppercuts to the chin. Canelo just round by round, physically and mentally broke down Billy Joe Saunders. Going into this fight, I was hoping, I wanted Canelo to win, and I'm glad he did, but I was hoping it was going to be a good competitive fight because, You want to see these fights be competitive, that you want to just tell your kids and your grandkids about, saying you watch that fight live. And we haven't seen Canelo in one of those fights since Gennady Golovkin. And credit to Canelo, he's just operating right now on a different frequency, and he's just making these hard fights look easy. It's like what Roy Jones said, it's not that I'm not fighting nobody, I'm making it look like nobody. Y'all must have forgot. And that's Canelo right now. He's on a different level right now. And in my perspective, the fight wasn't very close. I know the commentators gave Billy Joe 3 rounds, possibly 4. I don't see that. I see maybe 2 to 3 at most. I think Canelo landed the meaningful shots, the showing shots, meaning the shots that you could easily see. A lot of Billy Joe's punches were caught off Canelo's gloves. He did give Canelo a little shiner with his boxing. You're not going to go swimming without getting wet, so of course you're going to get tagged. But it was nothing to make Canelo say, I have to be worried about anything. He never put any sort of fear or hesitancy in Canelo's heart. And it was quite clear Canelo was able to do that to Billy Joe. It's such an exciting thing as a fan to watch Canelo fight, because you're watching a genius in the ring, and he took so many notes when he fought Floyd Mayweather, Lara, Golovkin, Mosley, Trout. With all those fights, Cotto, he took out his pen and his notepad and took notes. He took notes. He had to. And those fights made him so much better. And we're seeing that right now. And right now, all these fighters have to pay for Canelo's lessons. And now Canelo's giving everybody lessons. Classes in session, and Canelo's taking these guys to school. The fight ended just how the fight week was leading up, with Billy Joe's theatrics. What can you say? The fight was stopped in the 8th round going into the 9th. And when Canelo was going up into the 9th round, we saw him celebrating, and I'm thinking, all right, he's getting the crowd riled up, but the fight's not over. You gotta get focused. And then you hear the announcer say the fight's off. I don't believe I'm the only one who was scratching his head saying what happened. And Billy Joe, he quit. What else can you say? He quit. He quit. When the going got rough, he did not come out to answer the bell. And this is not knocking Billy Joe. I don't want it to make it sound like I'm coming after him, but this is boxing. The truth must be told, and this is my truth. He quit. He had a moment, and it was his moment to act like a champion. Not just a champion, a legend. That's what legends do. They answer the bell when things get rough. Sugar Ray Leonard did it against Thomas Hearns. Sugar Ray Leonard is one of my favorite fighters of all time. He was losing against Thomas Hearns, and this is back when they used to fight 15 rounds. It was the 14th round. Angelo Dundee came to Sugar Ray Leonard in the corner and told him the notorious line, "You're blowing it, son, you're blowing it." And you just see Sugar Ray Leonard's eye completely swollen shut, and he's just staring at Thomas Hearns, locked in like a pit bull. And I can only imagine what's going through his head, like, I'm coming to get you. And what happened? He got up, and like I said, he came at him like a pit bull. He saw his prey, and he went, and he chomped and chomped until he bit him, and he never let go. And he put so much pressure on Thomas Hearns, broke him down to the body, to the head, threw 1,001 punches, all with mean intentions. And what happened? Sugar Ray Leonard proved to be a legend that night, stopping Thomas Hearns in the 14th round, who's also a legend. He stopped him, and he was losing, and he had a broken orbital bone. Thomas Hearns broke his orbital bone. The hitman broke Sugar Ray's orbital bone. And this was in the 14th round. Sugar Ray Leonard bit on his mouthpiece, came out, answered the bell, and stopped Thomas Hearns. That's what champions are made of. These are what all-time greats are made of. That internal fortitude, the desire to push when they meet resistance. Not to stop and fold and bend and break when they meet resistance, to push through that barrier. Sugar Ray Leonard did. Muhammad Ali fought Ken Norton with a broken jaw from the second round to the end. You try fighting with a broken jaw. Try biting on your mouthpiece. Try taking a punch with a broken jaw. Muhammad Ali fought the whole fight from the second round to the end with a broken jaw. Never wavered, never bended, never broke. Met resistance, pushed through it. The most recent thing I can think of right now is Oscar Valdez. I forgot who he was fighting, but he broke his jaw. Oscar Valdez got his jaw broken, bit on his mouthpiece, if he could, kept fighting and got the win. Canelo's stablemate, Oscar Valdez. Met resistance, broke through it. Legends are made in these trials and tribulations, these difficult moments where they have to push through this barrier. And they do. They don't just push through, they break through. Billy Joe didn't. Billy Joe didn't. And I'm a fan of Billy Joe. I haven't really watched too much of his fight, so I can't really say I'm a fan, but I was a fan leading up to this fight because I watched the countdowns, the lead up to the fights. You know, some of my fighters are big fans of Billy Joe, so they told me a lot about him. And so I watched some of his fights. And in none of his fights did I think he had the ability to beat Canelo. I thought he could give Canelo problems with his movement, with his style, with his flavor, like against David Lemieux. You know, when he did that infamous pullback and he did the salute to the ring because David Lemieux missed so bad he almost fell through the ropes. I thought Billy Joe was going to add that character to the ring. Or try to. He couldn't. Canelo gave him no chance, no possibility to bring out that character. So, what can you say? Canelo just showed pure dominance. You know, I'm not going to make this me bashing Billy Joe, but it was just very disappointing and disheartening to watch what was coming into a very good fight be stopped short. You know, I understand he got his eye broken, his face broken. And as a civilian, I get how people can say, you would quit too. You got your face broken. I get that civilian perspective. But as a fighter and as a fan and as a diehard and a fanatic of the sport, that's what separates legendary fighters from great fighters. Billy Joe's a great fighter. He's a two-time champion, 2 different divisions. Nobody could take that from him. But he's not a legendary fighter. Legendary fighters stand up in moments of discomfort, of pain. He didn't. Canelo, right now, you can't question that he's the best in the world. You can't. I'm a Terrence Crawford fan, big time. But I can't see him perform. He's not fighting. Whether it's the promotional issues, network issues, whatever issues there may be, he's not fighting. Canelo's going to fight 4 times this year. He said he's going to fight again in September and December. As a fan, how can you not appreciate and love that? You get to see the pound-for-pound best fight 4 times a year, setting new standards. And I hope that the rest follow suit. I hope we get to see all the rest of these great fighters compete more than once or twice a year. I get it, coronavirus slowed everything down, but what's the excuse now? What's the excuse now? Let's get these fights going on. The best need to continue to try to fight the best. And if you're not going to fight the best, then challenge yourself. Don't fight these guys who are way past their prime over the hill just because they had a name before. Or they still have a name, but because their name is still prevalent, but they're not the best themselves that they were at one point in time. Canelo is doing it. Canelo is fighting the best. Back to back to back. Maybe not his last fight against Yildirim, but he was a mandatory. If Canelo wants to fight to make this a unified division, he had to defend that belt. If not, then he wouldn't have the IBF. Not the IBF, the WBA, I believe it was. Or WBC. Caleb Plant has the IBF. And I can't wait for that fight to happen. I'm a major, big-time Caleb Plant fan. I am so hyped for that fight. I can't wait for that fight to happen because I think what we'll see in Caleb Plant is that dog, that pit bull, that internal fortitude, that even if he meets resistance, even if he's outmatched, even if he's outgunned, he will fight to the bitter end. I truly believe that about Caleb Plant. I think that's a great, great fight. The only thing that Caleb Plant right now doesn't have in his pros is the experience. He doesn't have the experience at that top level multiple times to to pull out different kind of weapons against Canelo. Canelo has a long list of great fighters he fought, so Canelo has that experience, that confidence. I think Caleb Plant is very confident. I think Caleb Plant is more than able to cause problems to Canelo, possibly beat Canelo. I think Caleb Plant is that kind of fighter. I really do. Does he beat him? I'd have to break down the fight more in depth to come up with that answer. And when the fight gets closer to happening, I'll come up with my prediction. But I'm a big fan of Caleb Plant, and I think that fight right now is a very competitive fight. I believe that. So that looks like it's going to be next, September. And after that, who knows? But let's just focus on what's next. And I think that that's going to be a great stylistic fight. And let's get into what happened next. Going over my notes here. Okay, the post-fight press conference with Demetrius Andrade. I loved it. I'm a big fan of Demetrius Andrade. I guess not many people are, or they don't know who he is, which is a shame because he's a terrific fighter. Very skilled, very talented. 30-0, two-division champion, 154, 160. He got into the Canelo Alvarez post-fight press conference and I guess ruffled some feathers. He called out Canelo, and Canelo's initial reaction was just dismissal. Like, who is this guy coming here? He knows who he is, but it's just he doesn't want to give him any attention, any spotlight, for whatever reason it may be. And I remember seeing the video. You see the security guard telling Demetrius Andrade and his father, not here, this isn't the place. And you just hear Demetrius Andrade's father saying, this is how fights are made. And I loved it. As a fan, who doesn't want to see someone get called out like this? Demetrius Andrade showed respect. I'm a big fan. Canelo responded, I know. But this is what you want to see. You want to see the best call each other out. And in style. Demetrius Andrade went to his press conference and said, when are we going to get it on? And from there it escalated. Canelo did not respond well. Canelo, now he's showing his personality, responding, get the fuck out of here. You're a horrible fighter. You just want a payday. You want payday. And all Demetrius Andrade said is, well, we're going to make the fight happen. If I'm an easy payday, show me. I can't wait if that fight happens. I hope it does. That's another great stylistically, that's a great fight. But that was super entertaining. That was a great moment. Demetrius Andrade, I guess, is kind of getting known for this. He did it against Jamal Charlo years back. And unfortunately, that fight never happened either. But let's hope that things start to change because Eddie Hearn is the promoter of both Canelo and Demetrius Andrade. Although I think Canelo is a free agent. So I think he's in talks with re-signing with Eddie Hearn, but I do believe that he's going to try to remain a free agent and just go off a fight-by-fight basis, which I think is better. That way he can do crossover fights, fight on Showtime, Fox, ESPN, Matchroom, DAZN, wherever the big fights lead and obviously the money fights lead. So we'll see what's next when it comes to Demetrius Andrade and Canelo. I thought that was a classic moment. It went viral. That was awesome. Okay, next we have Frank Sanchez in the heavyweight division. So Frank Sanchez is Canelo's teammate out of Cuba. Very skilled fighter. I thought he was older than what he is. I thought he was in his 30s, but the commentator, I believe, said he was 28. No knock on Frank. But he fought an American who they said on the commentary team that he's a national Golden Glove champion, which is amazing. Very, very great. Very credible. That's one of the hardest things to win in the amateurs is the national Golden Gloves. So that fight, the guy had a good style, the opponent. Very traditional boxer, hands up, elbows in. He just didn't have the X factor. He had nothing special about him. And Frank Sanchez just looks extremely skilled. Very traditional boxer as far as technique goes. But he has the X factor. He has that confidence. He has that power. He has that I want to hurt you in him. And as a fan, I'm a big fan of watching him fight. I think he's a great fighter. And knowing that he's only 28, he still has a pretty substantial future ahead of him. And we want to see these big fights happen. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua just got announced. I believe it's set for August in Abu Dhabi. Something like that, I believe. Don't quote me on the location. But that fight's finally happening. Thank God. Thank God. I cannot wait for this fight. I think my prediction, I'll give it, wait for the prediction. But I have my prediction already. Wait until the week before the fight. I'll give you guys my final prediction. But I cannot wait for that fight to happen. Deontay Wilder is posting training clips again, so I think he's finally ready to start coming back. Hopefully, because he will make the heavyweight division extremely interesting again. Andrew Ruiz just fought 2 weekends ago, against Chris Arreola. A very, very good fight. Arreola dropping him, I believe it was in the second round, and landing a lot of right hands early in the fight. And then the story of the fight for me was Andy Ruiz adjusting to that right hand of Arreola, and Arreola never adjusting to the 1-2-3 from Ruiz. And I think the 1-2-3 from Ruiz won the fight. I think Arreola is a very tough fighter. I thought going into the fight that Ruiz was going to stop Arreola because I thought Arreola's age was going to be his downfall in the fight, but it wasn't. He trained very hard. He has a great trainer in Joe Goosen. Chris Arreola has a heart of a warrior, and the fight was very great. It was a very great fight. So Andy Ruiz is another fighter right now who we want to see fight. Derek Chisora just fought with Joseph Parker. I didn't see the fight. I heard the fight was very close. I was rooting for Derek Chisora because he's trained by Buddy McGirt, and Buddy McGirt is a friend of mine. I trained with Buddy McGirt multiple times. So I was pulling for Derek Chisora, and I heard, unfortunately, he got robbed. But either way, those are both still relevant names in the heavyweight division. And who else is there at the heavyweight division? Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, Usyk. The heavyweight division right now is stacked. And I like to see Frank Sanchez compete with any of those guys. I think they'd all would be great fights. I think he's ready for any of those fights right now. I don't see why there's any point in waiting. He has a deep, extensive amateur career. He's, I believe, 18-0 and 19-0. And he's dominating all the guys he's fighting. He's trained by Eddie Reynoso in a great camp in San Diego or in Carson, in LA with Canelo Alvarez, Oscar Valdez, Canelo, Ryan Garcia. I might have said the name already, but that training stable is packed. So when you're around greatness, it's going to inspire you to be great. So I'd like to see all these fights happen right now. Hopefully they will. But the heavyweight division is on fire, and it has been for a while. I think right now more than ever, though. And we have a lot of big fights coming up, and I can't wait for those to happen. Who else is on the card? Keyshawn Davis and Marc Castro, two up-and-comers. I believe Keyshawn Davis fights a lightweight at 135, and Marc Castro fights at 130, maybe 126. And leading into the fight, there was a little bit of drama going on. And I know because I followed a little bit of their amateur career that they fought a few times. I didn't know Marc Castro was 3-0 in the amateurs against Keyshawn Davis. And I believe it was Chris Mannix at the weigh-in asked Marc Castro, what do you think about the rivalry with Keyshawn Davis? And Marc Castro responded saying, what rivalry? I'm 3-0 against him. That's not a rivalry. And Keyshawn Davis didn't take too kindly to that. They were fighting each other this night. They're fighting different opponents. Keyshawn Davis was first out of those two to fight, and he is a very technical, very skilled fighter. He was supposed to go to the Olympics, but I believe he didn't want to wait for however long it's going to take, so he decided to turn pro. And he fought a tough, awkward style Mexican fighter. I think Keyshawn Davis looked good, albeit the circumstances of the style he was going against. I know going into the fight, he was talking about how he wanted to knock this guy out. Obviously, everyone wants to get a knockout. He couldn't get it. I think he realized that pretty quick. As a fighter, you know this guy's here to stay. And I think he outboxed him. He dominated him. He faced a little adversity getting hit with the big uppercut, but that's about it. He controlled the fight. He adjusted after the uppercut and didn't get hit with it again. I think he's a very polished fighter. And there's a lot of big fights coming up for him in the future. There's no rush. He's only 3-0. Big future ahead of him, so we got to take his time. Marc Castro, same record, 2-0, now 3-0. I believe he fought also a Mexican. And Marc Castro just came out like a bull out of a china shop and just rushed his opponent, stayed in his opponent's chest the whole night, and broke him down, stopped him. Two great fighters. I truly believe two future champions in maybe 2 years or so. And I would love to see that fight happen. I know Keyshawn Davis was telling the commentating crew after Og Barak and Chris Algieri that Because Brock asked him, when can we see this fight happen? And Keyshawn Davis said, we could fight whenever. If you want to fight now, we could promote the shit out of this. We can make this fight happen. Let's get this going. That's not going to happen. They're both going to take their time as far as who's running their careers. They're going to be moved accordingly. And when that fight happens, I think it'll be a great fight. They'll build it up properly. Amateur, they fought 3 times in the amateurs. Marc Castro's 3-0 against them. Keyshawn Davis is extremely confident in his skill. He believes at the pro game, because pros is completely different than amateurs, on the pro level, he'll dominate Marc Castro. Will that come to fruition? Who knows? We'll see eventually. That was also a great fight. Let's see what's next. Canelo and Chavez Sr. So going into the fight, I heard one of the reporters say that Chavez Sr. said that it's too late for Canelo. I'm misquoting here, but I'm paraphrasing. Canelo can never be as great as Chavez because Chavez went 89-0 and Canelo already has a loss. I don't know if that's an accurate statement. I didn't hear that out of Chavez, but if that was true, like what Canelo said, let's compare when our careers are over. I'm a big Chavez Sr. fan, and I'm not going to compare right now either who's the better of the two. It's hard to say right now Canelo's better than Chavez Sr. Chavez Sr. is one of the all-time greats, already solidified. Canelo's working his way up that list. So if we were to compare resumes right now, it's hard to say Canelo has done more as a fighter than Chavez Sr. Like Canelo said, when our careers are over, let's debate. But Canelo is very respectful. I know for a fact Chavez Sr. is one of his idols, so he's not going to disrespect him. And you saw after the fight, they both hugged and embraced, and they did an interview together. Chavez Sr. loves Canelo. And as a fighter, you're not going to say anyone else is better than you. You've heard Floyd say that, Sugar Ray Leonard say that, and multiple others. You're not a fighter if you're going to say someone else is better than you. You don't dedicate your life to a sport to say another fighter is better than you. So when Chavez Sr. says that, he's supposed to say this. Especially that he's already solidified. He's an all-time great. He's not just an ordinary champion. He's one of the best to ever do it. All right, last thing that I want to talk about is Floyd Mayweather at the Logan Paul press conference saying that Gervonta Davis is the face of boxing over Canelo. Going back to what I was saying about Chavez Sr. supposed to say he's better than Canelo. Canelo's supposed to say that he's better than Chavez. The same thing Floyd Mayweather is supposed to do, being Gervonta Davis' promoter. He's supposed to say that Gervonta is a bigger name in the face of boxing over Canelo. I'm not looking into that at all. Mayweather's supposed to say that. He's Gervonta's promoter. Gervonta is one of the biggest names in boxing. He's a terrific fighter, super exciting fighter to watch. Is another fighter I'm a big fan of. What do we tune in to watch for boxing? A spectacle. And Gervonta gives that to us. He gives us knockouts. And we love him for that. But we're talking about those solidified throughout this show. Gervonta hasn't solidified himself yet as far as longevity. He's already fought good fighters, knocked good fighters out. But Canelo's done the same thing over a decade already. Gervonta came into the scene, won his first bout, I believe, 2017, 2018 against Jose Pedraza. So he doesn't have the longevity that Canelo has. So I disagree with that comment by Mayweather. Again, that's what he's supposed to say. I'm not looking at anything past that. And, we'll see what happens next. We'll see what happens with Gervonta. I think he's signed to fight Mario Barrios. It's a really good fight. Gervonta's going up to 140. Whether it's because he doesn't want to cut weight no more or he feels unmotivated to fight at 130 or 135, because at 135, all the big names are already matched. So maybe he's going to 140 because he wants to face a new challenge. He's definitely getting a new challenge in Mario Barrios. Very tough fighter with a lot of heart, very skilled. I haven't seen too many fights of his besides his last fight against Cowboy. But I think it'll be a good fight. I'll give my prediction on that the week before the fight. And what's coming up next? Next week, Saturday, there's no really big fights for boxing. I know there's Luis Neri versus Figueroa on Showtime. That'll be an interesting fight. I don't know much about the two, but from what I've heard about Neri, he's a southpaw. He's trains with Eddie Reynoso in the Canelo's camp, so he's going to be in shape, well-trained, well-versed, and ready for anything. Figueroa, I don't know much about him, but from what I've been hearing, Nery is favorite for good reason. So I think Nery will win that fight. And this weekend also is Eddie Alvarez versus Charles Oliveira. And Tony Ferguson is back against Dariush. Great fights for the lightweight division. And this is for the belt. Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. That's for the belt, for the UFC lightweight title. It's a great fight. I know Charles Oliveira is on a hot streak right now. Michael Chandler just came off his debut, knocking out Dan Hooker. Both of their confidences right now are at an all-time high. I think this is a great fight. Stylistically, I think it's hard for Charles Oliveira to try to take this to the ground since Michael Chandler is a collegiate wrestler at a high level. So I think it will be a stand-up fight. And at that point, we'll see who's better well-versed in the stand-up. I think Michael Chandler is very skilled. We saw him knocking out Dan Hooker, which is no easy feat to accomplish. He is trained by Henry Hoopt, who's a great striking coach. So going into the fight, I believe Michael Chandler has the edge, although confidence is the hardest thing to break in a fighter, and I do believe Charles Oliveira is at an all-time high in confidence. I do believe the same about Michael Chandler, so I think that's going to be a great fight. We will see what happens. I do believe Michael Chandler gets the job done. I will definitely be tuned in to watch, and I'm excited Tony Ferguson is back. El Kukui, he's fighting Dariush. I think Kukui gets the job done. I think whether it's standing on the feet because now he's training with Freddie Roach, or it goes to the ground because he's also training with Eddie Bravo out of 10th Planet. I think anywhere this fight goes, I think Tony will win. I think you can't break his spirit. You can't break his heart. I think no matter what Dariush comes with, I think Tony Ferguson will have an answer. And if he doesn't, he will improvise as he always does. And I think he will pull out the decision. I don't see this fight being stopped. And that's it, you guys. I really appreciate you guys all tuning in. This is my very first podcast, Blow by Blow, with me, your host, Nick Irizarry. I love you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much. Please like, share, subscribe. Share this to your friends, whoever's willing to listen. And we'll be back next week breaking down what took place over the weekend and future events coming up. Take care, you guys. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.